annual GDP growth. 11. So this is besides that, I also would like to highlight on the target average household income. Under RMK 12, it has been targeted that the average household income should increase from the current level of about 7,000 ringgit per month to 10,000 ringgit per month by the end of RMK 12, which is in 2025. RMK 12 contains three main themes. The first one will be, of course, the resetting of the economy to gain back what's being lost due to the pandemic of COVID-19. And number two is to strengthen the security, the well-being and inclusivity of the people. Number three is to have an advance in terms of sustainability. So that's the themes of RMK 12. Resetting economy, strengthening the security, well-being and security, as well as focusing on sustainability. And it contains 4 policy enablers. The first one is to develop future talent, focusing on 4IR. Number two is to accelerate technology adoption and innovation. Number three is to enhance connectivity and transport infrastructure. And number four is to strengthen the public service. And in supporting the 4 policy enablers and 3 themes, RMK 12 contains 14 game changers that are being identified to propel our country from the year 2021 to 2025 to achieve the target, and also to support the journey of the country towards realizing the Vision 2030. This is some of the excerpts on the construction tech related items inside RMK 12 under Game Changer 7, which is on multiplying growth in less developed states, especially in Sabah and Sarawak, with the main target to reduce the development gap. So I wish to highlight a few items here. One of it is the focus on the 6 states, which are Perlis, Kedah, Kelantan, Terengganu, Sabah and Sarawak, will be allocated at least 50% of the total basic development expenditure for projects such as construction of schools, hospitals, roads, industrial areas, and also programs to eradicate poverty. So this is a major policy item, which also include some items on the affordable housing. The target for affordable housing under RMK 12 is 100,000 units by the year 2025. And of course, there's also focus on quality construction. IBS is being mentioned by a number of times, as well as BEAM, and also QLASIC, which is also related to quality housing. And in fact, if you're looking at QLASIC, it is being also mentioned under RMK 12 that the target is to make QLASIC compulsory for any development, any new development. And also, this is also quite in line with the target set for IBS and BEAM, which is also under the construction, under the CR 4.0 plan for the construction industry. And also, I would like to highlight the Dasar Perumahan Mampu Milik Negara. IBS and BEAM is also 2 of the main items being identified under the policy, which means that the 2 items are supposed to be made compulsory when doing design for affordable housing. The next game changer that I would like to highlight is game changer number 8, which is to embrace the circular economy. This is towards green and sustainable nation. The target is to sustainable, low carbon and resilient nation, and also to reduce GHG, the greenhouse gas emissions intensity compared to GDP, to up to 45% by 2030, which is based on the previous previous base figure at the year 2005. And for your info, in 2025, the target was 35%. So they have actually increased the target to reduce the GHG up to 45% by the end of the RMK 12. Also focusing on reducing wastages, which is also related to construction, and to reduce pollution and increase, and also to provide support in terms of increasing the green financing business and creating green-related jobs. And of course, MyCREST are being mentioned, and also Infrastar. This is also quite how we execute our construction projects, including the usage of IBS as a method of construction, as the preferred method of construction, as well as the usage of BIM to get the best out of the construction processes. Next will be Game Changer 10, which is to improve the TVET ecosystem to produce the future ready talent and to increase in the program intake of high school leavers to 55%, focusing on 4R40 related courses. And also important here is to reduce the dependency on foreign workers. This is essential because, as we know, we are relying heavily on foreign workers. We are still relying heavily on foreign workers, especially in the construction industry. Last but not least, the game changer number 12, which is to align research and development towards commercialization, wealth generation, and economic growth. A high target has been set for research and development, which is 2.5 out of the GDP. So these are the items that are quite related to construction industry and also to construction tech. So related to what we are going to discuss today. I end my slide with this announcement actually from Matrade actually. Under the market development grant actually, they have included the item for international certification for exports. So if you are doing exports, or if you're planning to do export, you can opt for this grant, which is up to 30,000 per application, for you to get certifications for exports, including MS, ISO, and other international certification for export purposes. So this is under the category additional activities category for international certification for exports, but you have to submit by 31st December 2021. So thank you, and now I would like to invite the first two presenters, because they're going to present under the same set of decks, which is under the topic of product certifications, inspection and testing for building components, including IBS, as well as for construction materials. And again, I would like to invite, I'm honored to invite Cik Iswari Mak Yaakob and Cik Muzaffar Fiqi Ismail from Cerium QS International. With that, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Shahrul. Thank you very much, Engineer Shahrul. I think we have some issues on the sound. So before we start, maybe we try to rectify that thing first.
I see. There's no sound,
Yeah.
Okay. You mean sound through the YouTube? It's not being connected. ke?
Yes. That's what the comment we received from the audience.
Oh, okay. Alright. Okay. Macam mana Safizal? Dah okay ke?
Sekarang okay ya?
Sekarang okay. Okay.
Okay, alright. Thank you.
Okay lah.
So I can start now.
Okay, sila.
So I can start now. So right, Assalamualaikum, very good morning, salam sejahtera to all the participants on our for sustainable constructions. So thank you very much to the host, organizer on this program, Innovasia Sdn Bhd. So I am Miswari bin Mat Yaakob, and together with me today, my colleague, Encik Muzaffar Fikri Ismail. The topic we are going to share today will be on the certification, inspection, and testing for the building components. We try to be more specific on the IBS, and then other construction materials. Let us start. So this is the contents we are going to share with the participants on our today program, webinar. First of all, we will talk a little bit about SIRIM QAS International. And then I will share with the participant on the benefit of certifications. And then later on, we will zoom to the industrialized building system, IBS, the certification mark, the license. And then we will have a quick break for the corporate video sharing. And then I will hand over the session to my colleague, Encik Muzaffar, to continue with the certification process, product applicable standard, and then the testing facilities. So at the end of our webinar today, there will be a question and answer session. So I would like to welcome all the questions and inquiry lah, kalau ada. Alright, let us start. Okay, SIRIM stands for Industrial Research Institute of Malaysia. So SIRIM wholly owned by Ministry of Finance Incorporated. For now, we are under purview of the Ministry of MITI, Kementerian Perdagangan Antarabangsa dan Industri. So under SIRIM, there are few group of companies. SIRIM QAS International, where we come from. And then other than SIRIM QAS International, there are SIRIM STV, SIRIM SDS, SIRIM SST, SIRIM NPT, SIRIM Measurement. So we are all involved in the commercial things like conformity assessment for the testing, inspection, and certification. This is the main function of the SIRIM QAS International. Other than that, for the SIRIM SDS example, training and consulting, standard research and development, calibration and measurement, entrepreneur development, packaging, and security design. Lastly, on the commercialization of the services. Okay, other than this group, we have also SIRIM IR, which is stand for Industrial Research, SIRIM Industrial Research, and Majlis Reka Bentuk Malaysia, MRM. So this one focus on the developmental, which are industrial research, technology innovation, technology services, design activities, and design advisory. Last but not least, we have National Metrology Institute of Malaysia, NML. This one based in Sepang, responsible for the measurement and traceability in Malaysia for the SI unit and so on, R&D in measurement of technology and measurement of standards. So if you want to make sure, let's say 1 kilogram measurement, is it correct or not, then we can always refer to this National Meteorology Institute of Malaysia. All right, so we move to the slide. Okay, we talk a bit on the SIRIM QS International Services. So SIRIM QS International was established in 1996 and only owned subsidiary of SIRIM Berhad. We start the conformity assessment since 1970s, to be exact, if I'm not mistaken, 1974. Currently, our staff strength is about 800 plus personnel based in Malaysia. Anyhow, we have international office in Bahrain, and hopefully very soon we are going to have another international office in China. So we have local and international clients so far. Our accredited and internationally recognized, as we can see on the screen, we have partners in about 74 countries, accessible to 22,000 auditors. So far, we have conducted and certified the product about 100,000. And we have issued a license product certification for about 10 of thousands. Okay. So let's talk about the benefit of SIRIM certifications. Over here, we can see, first of all, to provide independent assurance for the product manufactured, to conform consistently with the Malaysia or international standard, with the Malaysian standard or international standard, the certification assurance, to assure the product quality, safety, and reliability. Second one, in order for the construction material, we need to have the PBS, Pengakuan Pematuhan Standard from CIDP. This one under Act 520, and also approval from SPAN, Suruhanjaya Perkhidmatan Air Negara under Act 655, whichever applicable. So in order to get the PPS and SPAN approval, the product need to be certified. So pre-qualification to get the PPS and SPAN approval, the product need to be certified. Number 3, our product to be certified by us, by SIRIM, will be listed in the Treasury listing, which is being referred to all the government agencies and authorities. Okay. Other than that, of course, when we certify the product, we will enhance the reputations and extend the market, accessible to the market with our product certification mark. Number 5, the product, when certified by SIRIM, we're fulfilling an order from the Ministry of Finance based on the Surat Keliling Bilangan 7 tahun 2020. Whereas supposed to be all the government project is mandatory to use the certified products. Okay. Other than that, there are still more benefit of the certifications. On the next slide. So yeah, of course, SIRIM certification is well recognized by the authority, locally and abroad, government body and professional body, associations such as Satuan Architect Malaysia, Institution of Engineers, Association of Civil Engineers, and others Majlis Daerah, PBT, and so on. We also at SIRIM provide promotion and advertisement with our all year round promotion program. If you can see, kita punya billboard ada SIRIM baru beli. This one, I think you can see at the highway to the north, to the south, to the east. Dekat Karak Highway ada. In fact, dekat Klang Valley pun ada few. So indirectly, we do the promotion to all the product or manufacturer certified by us. as our support lah to our licensee. Okay. And also, SIRIM, as earlier mentioned, is a government agency under MITI and wholly owned by the Ministry of Finance Incorporated. Okay, so now we we zoom on the Industrial Bidding System, IBS. Whereas together with this IBS, we have an impact program owned by CIDB IBS lah, owned by CIDB through their subsidiary CIDB IBS Sdn Bhd. So this program, we work together with CIDB through their subsidiary CIDB IBS. For these certifications, SIRIM will provide the product certification and testing as a pre-qualification to the manufacturer, to the IBS player, to apply an impact approval from CIDB IBS. Impact stands for, is a short form for the IBS Manufacturer Product Assessment, Certification and Testing. Okay, let us go through what is the Industrial Building System, IBS, Industrialized Building System. Known in Malaysia as IBS. Anyhow, other than that, we can, some people call it as a PFC, prefabricated constructions, or MMC, modern method construction. Some people call it offsite constructions. In Malaysia, this IBS construction was introduced in Malaysia in 1960. The first project using the IBS in Malaysia is flat perkeliling by KPKT, Kementerian Perumahan dan Kerajaan Tempatan. The technology was bringing from Denmark. Now, the flat perkeliling in Jalan Turata is no more, was demolished, if I'm not mistaken, at 2014. Anyway, the system is successful over there. Okay. Actually, IBS started in Malaysia about 50 years ago and proven to be successful. If you refer to the historical fact, IBS is not new actually. It was started, can be said, as at about 5,000 years ago. The concept of IBS was used in building the pyramids in Egypt at about 5,000 years ago. So it's not new actually. So some example of the IBS and conventional in comparison. If you can see, of course, IBS have many advantages compared to the conventional. So example on the screen now, we can see here when we are using a conventional construction, it's quite hard to maintain the housekeeping at site. We can see, you see the wastages of the construction material, scaffolding everywhere, steel construction material everywhere. So it's quite hard for the contractor to maintain the housekeeping. And then the next will be, you see, concreting done on site. So of course, will involve laborers, the ready-made concrete trucks coming, noise or whatever. So that one, the disadvantages if you are using the conventional construction methods. So let's look on the IBS. Example for the construction using the IBS method. This is the double-story bungalow using the precast component. You can see the site is very clean, neat. Okay, not many people involved at site. See for the high-rise building construction also, that is very clean and neat. It's not messy. Okay. So our reference, a guidance on the IBS certifications. Of course, every component of the IBS, we have a specific standard. That one will be elaborate into the details by my colleague later on, Cik Muzaffar. For now, the guidance to certify the IBS product in Malaysia, we are referring to CIS 24-2018. Anyway, there will be a new version of the CIS 24-2020. I think very soon going to be published for reference. Example on the IBS categories. First, we have a stay formward system. This one also considered as a IBS using the stay formward system. Steel framing system. Linear structural elements consist of beam and column. Wall element, staircase, all this is precast IBS. And then the precast concrete floor slabs. There are a few category of the floor slab. We have hollow core slab, solid slab, half slabs. And then this one quite new technology. We call it PPVC or PB, prefabricated bathroom unit. Prefabricated, pre-finished volumetric constructions. So so far we have certified few license for this category of product using our engineering inspection approach. Because for this product so far we have no standard reference standard to certify this one. So we use our engineering inspection approach. Okay, advantages of IBS certification scheme and impact approval. So for the product itself, of course, there will be a guarantee on the quality to enhance the commercial value of the product itself, and then also to as a platform to promote the IBS product in order to get the impact approval through the campaign initiated by CIDP. We have a few campaigns, CITP, Construction Industry Transformation Plan, even TN50. So all these will involve IBS. Okay, the advantages to the players, manufacturer, contractor, and then the consultant firms. It can be the one of the pengesahan untuk mendapat penilaian yang lengkap through our impact approval issued by CIDP. So become a platform to promote directly the product and to increase the margin and then the profit selling. Okay, to the pendidikan industri, to the clients, pelaksana, and so on. So the quality of the IBS product is guaranteed. Okay, so value for money. So menambah keyakinan tentang quality product IBS yang telah mendapat selling impact. Of course, with the impact approval, the quality of the product is guaranteed. So as a reference, easy reference to all the user of the IBS. So just refer to the impact whenever the product has been approved for the impact. So the product have been guaranteed, confirmed to fulfill all the requirements. Okay, other than that, as for sharing,
to the viewers, please feel free to write down any questions at the chat segment on the YouTube channel. So Maya will answer it during the session.
Assalamualaikum and very good morning to all of you. Please bear with me for a few minutes. To setting my presentation. Okay. Just now we have heard a form of a certification, but that certification apply for a product. But for this session, I will be discussing about another form of certification, but this certification is at the project level. Okay, and since this certification has been mentioned in RM12, there is QLASIC and MICRES. So we thought that this certification might gain some importance in the future. And therefore, we in Innovasia, we thought we would like to play a bigger role in supporting this by CIDB. Okay, so let us start. So I have two presentation. One is QLASIC, the other one is MICRES, and each being given me about 50 minutes. So for QLASIC, I have about 30 slides, but I will not go through all the slides. I will be very selective in my slide. There are slides which I want on it, and then there is slide will be I'll spend a little bit more time to give some explanation on the slide. So please remember that this is a kind of sharing knowledge or briefing. It's not the training. Therefore, I will not discuss in detail about the assessment of QLASIC. Okay. All right. Okay, how QLASIC can support sustainable construction? How do you know that QLASIC support sustainable construction? So if you know, if any of you know about this GBI, Green Building Index, and all right, available in the market now. So in GBI, say 70% and above, you can claim points. Same goes to MICRES. If you can achieve a high QLASIC score and you submit to the organizer, MICRES organizer, then you can also earn point for your application. So this shows that both of these are sustainable green tools used to assess the green aspect of the project. So by giving some kind of recognition to click, shows that QLASIC have some impact on sustainable construction. But if we look at the bigger picture on quality, actually, quality actually can support sustainable construction in terms of lowering the maintainability, less rework, less making good defect, and because of that, it'll be less hacking, less generation of waste. So that is one of the principles of sustainable construction, whereby minimizing of waste. Okay. Another aspect on quality that can support sustainable construction will be higher longevity, which means that a longer economic lifespan of the building. Okay, so longer lifespan will be less demolition of the building, less demolition of the building will cause less generation of waste, and that will contribute to sustainable construction. Okay, basic fundamental question: what is QLASIC? So QLASIC is an acronym for Quality Assessment System and Construction. So basically a Malaysian independent, QLASIC is a Malaysian independent quality assessment tool to measure the management system. And QLASIC is just an assessment tool that measure the end output of the project. Okay, the final output of the project. Okay. Okay, so now I would like to go into our subject matter, that is QLASIC. So generally, QLASIC can be divided into two components. One is the assessment reference standard, we call it CIS7, and the other one is the on-site assessment, physical assessment on-site. Okay, so the assessment on-site will be made based on the standard which is stated inside CIS7. So actually now CIDB has already issued the new version of CIS7. There's CIS7 2021. But for this presentation, I will still use the 2014 version because I think at the moment for 2021 to be implemented, there must be some kind of transition period for it, for the industry to migrate from 2014 version to 2021 version. Okay, these standards contain 4 components: architectural, structure, standard, and work. Just there's a note there. At this moment, CIDB doesn't conduct all the 4 components. At the moment, CIDB conduct assessment on architectural, external work, and basic and fittings only. Okay. Okay, let us quickly look at the assessment structure. Okay, firstly, the first level will be the categories of building. What categories of building? That is the first level assessment. You have to know what category of your building. Whether it is landed, stratified, public, with a central aircon, or public building with a non-central aircon. CCS is a central cooling system. Okay, the next thing is that you know that under each category, there will break down into 4 components, and each of these components, there will be again and being allocated certain wages, weightages, right? If you look at the weightage among the components, you will notice that architecture work commands the highest weightage for all categories. If you look at it, so for the landed, it's about 70%, and certified about 60%, and so that gives us an indication that Q6 actually emphasize on finishing work, because architectural work is basically about finishing work. Okay, and this is shown in the slide, the breakdown of elements for each component. All right, I will not go through it in detail, but just to inform you, under this element, there are also elements that have further breakdown into sub-elements, which I will show you afterwards, okay? Okay, we go to the first component first, architectural work. Okay, these are the work, and the assessment for architectural work takes place after the project completion. For structural work, the assessment is during construction, but for architectural work, and later on for basic NE and external work is for after construction, after project completes. Okay, so the distribution of components for agriculture work for each category. Okay, this is sampling. Sampling, this slide is basically to show you. So when the CIDB do the assessment of for classic, they go for sampling. So based on the population of the building, and they will go for calculate the samples, and they will do the assessment based on the calculated sampling. Okay, so this is the the based on the gross flow area submitted by the applicant or contractor. And this is the factor, the gross area per location is a factor divided by the gross area. Then you will get the number of samples. All right. Excuse me, sorry. And this is maximum sample for category. Okay. All right. But this is the sub-elements under internal finishes. So this is the element, this is the sub-elements, and each of these elements, again, they'll be allocated with certain weightage. Okay. Assessment, when the assessor go to the site, they will do the assessment. What are the method of assessment? All right. Firstly, by visual. Secondly, by physical. Physical here I mean the movement of the parts. For example, if door, they want to check for the squeak sound, they will open and close the door. Okay. They want to check on the button of the switches is functional or not. They will switch on and off of the switches. So that is physical. And the third one, of course, by the tools, measuring tools that's been specified in the standard. Okay. And then the fourth one is or the letter from the consultant. All right. So when they go to site, sorry. Okay. So when they go to site, the assessor will have a form to fill up. So if the check comply, they will mark tick, and not comply, they will mark cross. So this is the sample of the assessment form, just to show you. This is how it look like. The form when it's later filled up by the assessor, and then the outcome of the assessment, there will be a report, classic report, which have the breakdown of the score for each element, and then finally you will have this one, the certificate for classic score. So this is the score that we're looking at lah. So the higher the score denotes that of comparatively better quality. Lower score denotes that comparatively quite a poor quality of construction work. Okay. Okay, we thought that accuracy, accuracy is not about getting the score. It's not about getting apply for assessment and get the score and show the score, But we should have to make accuracy more meaningful, more useful, more beneficial to the project owner or to the contractor. Okay, so one of the things that we stress in QMS is the continual improvement. So we thought that we would like to make this QRASIC as a tool for CQI, continual and quality improvement. Okay, so that by having QRASIC, you are able to maintain consistently high score, and you are able to continually improve your score. So, but you have to improve because the data used by the third party, used as a tool for CQI, you have to do QRASIC for the entire project, and that one you have to do internally. Okay, so one of the area of we thought of that might be that should be looking at, of course, each project you have the project quality plan, and of course in the project quality plan you have what kind of supervision, the supervision schedule, and who is going to inspect, and the qualification of the supervisor to inspect, the training, C2I. Okay. And the last but not the least, this is, I think, been stressed inside ISO also, important of record keeping. Why we need proper record keeping? Because it's for the purpose of traceability. When we want to look back our record for the project, for if we have some problems, we have at the moment we have problems, and we want to check what are the solutions that we have done before. We know where to check, and we can get it very fast. So this is the importance of traceability, and of course, we use the present problems. It is some kind of lesson learned, all right? Some lesson learned that we can use. So this is how we hope if we can do this, then we expect that QRASIC can be more meaningful to the contractors or to the project. So we thought that we can offer in trying to provide facility to the owner in implementing QRASIC, and then we also can provide the management of the compliance assessment for the project, and then we also can design modules that fit or tailored to the requirement of the project owner with regard to QRASIC. Okay. Okay. So I think I've done that on Q&A. So I think I will go to Micras. Okay, Engineer Shahrul. I'll go to Micras. Huh?
Okay.
All right.
Sila.
Okay. All right. Okay, so now we come to the last one. So please bear me just few minutes. I think this is not going to be long because it's about less slides than before. Before 30 slides, it's about 20 slides, I think. All right. Okay, let's move on. Now I would like to spend some time to discuss on green assessment tool. This is related to green practices in construction. Okay. Firstly, let us look at the bigger picture of the green economy, all right? Of course, if you look at green economy, now in RN12, the government is trying to give some kind of emphasis on green economy. But a green economy apply across the board, all sectors, plantation, fisheries, to all sectors. So with regard to us, will be the construction sector, okay? For in construction sector, the first level, if you talk about construction, about sustainable, the first thing, of course, development. When you to start development, that we call it sustainable development. How do you develop so that you will not affect the environment? Try to save as much as possible the trees. Not if possible not to fill up the the natural river or lake and so on and so forth. Try not to disturb the present biodiversity of the land and so on and so forth. So the first thing is sustainable development, and then later it goes for the construction project. That's where we go for sustainable construction or green building. Okay, so Micras is related or associated to sustainable construction assessment. Okay, to assess how the level green of the project or the construction project. Okay, so the driver for sustainable construction will be the green technology. Okay, using energy high efficiency equipment. Green material that use material that does not disrupt the natural resources and so on and so forth. When you talk about green economy, you have the people might be talking about carbon trading. Carbon trading. When you talk about people trading, then people will be talking about carbon credit, carbon offset, carbon accounting, carbon footprint. So all these things will be deliberate in green economy. Okay, and Micras give emphasis on carbon emission or carbon abatement, call it. Okay, what is Micras? Micras is an acronym for Malaysian Carbon Reduction and Environment Sustainability Tool. Basically, Micras is a green tool, and that carbon reduction sustainable tool. So basically, Micras is a green tool, but stress or focus on effort in Micras is one of the tools available in the market. There are other tools available in the market. I'm not sure if you are aware. And if you have the green tools rebuilding, this is spearheaded by the PAM and ESM. And then you have Green RE. This is spearheaded by the REDA Developer Association. And then you have the Green Mark. This is from Singapore. LEED. This is a very famous one. In our market. There is LEED from America, and then we have CASB. CASB is quite widely used in southern Malaysia, somewhere in Johor. So CASB is from Japan. Okay, and then we have BRE. BRE is from UK. So these are some of the available green tools in our market. Okay, Micras. If you look a little bit on historical ground, was only somewhere in 2014-15 and launched in 2019. A few years later, it was reviewed and published in 2020. Okay, MyCREST can be divided into 3 components, which are MyCREST reference guide. This is the document that tell you what are the requirements that you need to comply. And then the scorecard, that is a document where display the score that you have claimed. Yeah? And also the document that shows the amount of emission that has been reduced or have been emitted for the project. And of course, you have the carbon calculator. Carbon calculator is that a machine that will calculate the amount of carbon emission after you have keyed in the data, the data. Okay, which of course you will know when you practice. But I just giving you some idea about it. Okay, so in reference criteria can have been labeled into 3 labels. We call it CR, CI, and S. Okay, CR is the criteria that you can measure the carbon emission, right? That is called quantifiable. That is where the emission is being calculated with using the calculator. Okay, and there are criteria that have impact on carbon, but we cannot calculate it because not enough data, or not enough data. For example, on emission factor, we don't have enough data on emission factor. Therefore, we cannot calculate the carbon emission for the activities. So for this kind of criteria, yes, we have impact on carbon, but unfortunately, we cannot quantify how much has impact on the carbon. So, and the third one is the one that do not have impact on carbon, but have impact on environment. Okay, so these are the 3 labels that you can see inside the MyCREST guide. This is a sample, right? The sample so if you open the reference guide, this is something that you will see, right? This is the label as I mentioned just now. This is CR. When CR, which means that this criteria can be, okay, some of the things that have been added in the new version here, they have introduced self-declaration. Before that, in the previous standard, you have to comply. They tell you what regulatory requirement that you need to comply. You know, some of the regulatory requirement that you must comply. But in this standard, we have they have taken out that. They have taken out that the regulatory compliance is the bound duty of the project owner or the project manager or project director. So they are responsible for construction result. But now they have changed it. They have make it individually. The design score will be the rating at the construction. And the area of changes they made in MyCREST. So we, Universia, since MyCREST is gaining some kind of importance in RM12, so as I mentioned before, Universia, we would like to play a bigger role to support this program. We feel that this is our role to support the government program. One area is providing the consulting services, which that we will do everything for the applicant. Right? We will do the compilation of evidence, writing the reports, writing the do the analysis and so on and so forth, and submission of the file and so on. This is more on 100% consultancy work. But the second one is the one, maybe we introduced this one is something new. We call it DRS scheme. DRS scheme means that we will coach the internal resources so that one day they become expert. When they become expert, then they will not rely on consultant for the services. Okay. And then, of course, we also have customized training and workshops. It depends on the whatever needs training by the client. So we will try to design the module for the client. Okay. I would just like to trigger you on one question. I don't know whether you all can answer or not. Anyway, you can try to answer, so that that will reduce your get a bit more interesting. Okay, in your opinion, do you think that MyCREST can be related to ZEB? Okay, zero energy program. Zero energy building, because zero energy building is an initiative by SEDA in moving towards carbon neutral building. Do you think there is a relation between MyCREST and ZEB? Any answer? Okay, I'll answer for you. The answer is yes. Okay, how? That one you can come over to us later lah. But what we're trying to hear is, if you do MyCREST on operation maintenance, concurrently you also should be applying for ZEB, and ZEB is going to is important for LCCF, low capacity framework. Okay, so if we support ZEB, we are also supporting for low capacity initiative by the government. Okay, this is my last slide. Just summary for what I have spent time with you this for the past few minutes. Okay, MyCREST is a carbon green tool. It was introduced in 2016, but now they have come up with the second version, which was published in 2020. And design and construction assessment comprised of maximum 182 points for aircon and 150 points for non-aircon. For OMM assessment, the maximum point is 118. MyCREST certified can be awarded independently at design, construction, and operation maintenance. Right? The new version of MyCREST, the new version is more practical and more flexible, and we hope with this more industry will come in, will get more buy-in from the industry for MyCREST, because this is in line with the aspiration of the government towards reducing carbon. Okay, and if you do MyCREST, basically you are promoting green practices, which emphasize on efforts for reduced carbon emission. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, done. With that, I think I pass over to Engineer Shahrul.
Thank you, Engineer Dr. Montaj Ali. Thank you for the presentation, and of course, before that, we had Encik Muzaffar and Encik Miswari from SIRIM QS International. Thank you. So let's proceed straight to the Q&A session. We have received a few questions. We'll try to answer it during this short period of time. But of course, we'll also we'll answer it through the YouTube channel as well as through some emails. I have the first question here, and in fact, it is being combined actually. A few similar questions that we try to combine here. This is for SIRIM QS. The question is, say for example, my company produce floor plates for floor system, house slabs in different types of thickness, concrete grades and sizes. The question is, do we have to get all types to go through product certification process? If not all, how do we choose which one to send for product certification? And also related to this, may I know what are the testing, what are the tests needed to be carried out? Are there any tests done on actual products? So the question is for SIRIM QS. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Shahrul. So regarding the first questions, regarding the components of the floor slabs, yes, we understand in one build we involve many range of product.
The question is there any way for us to get certified with SIRIM for concrete pipe culvert? Or is there any way to convince our clients that this pipe can be used as we already done and passed the crushing test and pressure test? So I believe this is also for SIRIM QS. Thank you.
Okay. Regarding the second option, is there any way for them to convince the clients? I think only one way: certify your products. Okay. We can say the pipe cover as mentioned just now. I believe it is the butt joint lah. Butt joint. We still can certify based on the requirement of MS 881 Part 3. If you talk about butt joint, I think that one is yes, an old design lah. Nowadays, normally people produce the OG joint, whereas they have a male and female joint. So for the butt joint, we can still certify based on the MS 881 Part 3. It's okay. We can use that standard to certify the butt joint concrete pipes. Is that okay?
Thank you. Okay, let's go to the third question. For Engineer Dr. Mokhtar, okay, the question is, what is the typical estimated cost from start to finish for the program related to IBS products? The question is, how do we start? How does the impact certification process links to the product certification under SIRIM? Shall we be dealing with one desk officer, or we have to go for another process at SIRIM? So either they go to CIDP or they go to SIRIM, or both. So again, the question is for SIRIM QS. Thank you.
Okay, for the impact program, this impact is a scheme owned by CIDB through CIDBS. Okay. In order to get the impact and approval, the product, the manufacturer, firstly need to be certified, their components, by SIRIM lah. So in this case, product certifications on the component become a pre-qualification in order to get the impact approval from CIDP. So in this case, I can say the precaster, I mean the IBS players have to deal with SIRIM, and after they apply the impact approval from CIDP, they have to deal with two agencies lah, SIRIM and CIDP. Okay. Hopefully that one will answer the questions.
Okay, thank you. The next question, okay, for Engineer Dr. Mokhtar, will the industry players, especially the smaller ones, I believe this the micro and the SME players, will they be ready with compulsory MICRES and QLASIC implementation in the industry? Are there any monetary incentives from the government? Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the questions. I think firstly I go for QLASIC. Okay, QLASIC is an ongoing process, right? Even though because QLASIC is something on quality. If you don't do a QLASIC assessment, you still have to do some kind of quality system in a project to ensure you have you're able to produce quality output of the project. Okay, so to me, for QLASIC is applicable to all, either a small or big project, because it doesn't involve it has cost implication, but it's not so significant, I would say, because it is something that you've been doing. You have to improve in terms of maybe you need to send your staff for training to get them to know about QLASIC and so on and so forth. But because QLASIC doesn't involve sophisticated measuring equipment or sophisticated equipment to carry out the assessment. So to me, QLASIC is applicable to all. All right. All right. For MICRES, again, for a small company, and maybe you can go for the lower star. Like, you know, the star rating start with 1 star, 2 star, 3 star. So for a small scale company that want to go for MyCrest, maybe they can target for lower star, and then once then slowly they can go up to initiative, more green initiative getting to be made. And because of that, you have to purchase equipment such as energy saving equipment, and then green materials, and then you have to, you know, in terms of machines and so on and so forth. Therefore, if you are small, maybe you go for lower and you go for criteria that does not involve a lot of mechanical input inside there. Okay, so I mean, I think MyCrest, I think yes, applicable to small company, but they can go for small at the lowering star, but later on they can gradually increase to high star. Okay. And then in terms of government incentive, that one, sorry, I'm not sure. Maybe this one we can check with this CIDB or Ministry of Finance in terms of what are the incentive. But at the moment, I think I haven't seen or came across any incentive provided by the government. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mohtar. Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. The next question will be, how long will it typically take for a product to get tested and certified? So again, I believe this is for CMQS. And how much will it cost for certification and testing based on typical cases? And again, any incentive from the government? Thank you.
Okay, all right, Engineer Shahrul. Interesting questions. Okay, regarding the time to get the product being certified and tested. Actually, SIRIM, we at SIRIM QAS, we limit the time for the applicant or the manufacturer or industry to get their license maximum in 2 years' time. Okay, because in this case, it depends on few parties to complete the certification process. Of course, SIRIM QAS as a certification body, and then some part is need to be played by the applicant itself. Okay, so meaning that on their readiness to prepare for the audit, the factory and so on. And then another part is on the testing, because the testing can be third-party testing, laboratory. So it involves a few parties over there. Anyway, based on my experience, the fastest we can come out with the license is about 1 month. If everything goes well, ideally, 1 month we can come up with a license. But then maximum, normally we give 2 years for them to get their product being certified. But then of course, if you refer to the pandemic, maybe we have to consider if we cannot proceed with the testing, we cannot proceed with the factory audit and so on, we may consider to extend the acceptance period, so-called the 2 years, we call it as an acceptance period. Due to certain reason which is valid, we may consider to extend the acceptance period. Maybe for another 6 months or 1 year. Okay, that one regarding the period. The other question is just now the cost, isn't it? Okay, same goes to the cost. The cost will depend on the complexity of the testing. If we talk about the testing fee, for the certifications, it will depend also on the location of the factory and so on. Okay, but then I can say for the certification itself, we range about, we talk about in Malaysia in Malaysia. If in Selangor, maybe the cost for the certification will be slightly cheaper starting from 400 plus, 4,000 plus. Sorry, let's say 4,500. can range up to 10,000, depend on the location of the factory. Okay, and then for the testing fee, it depends on the standard we are going to use, the test we are going to conduct, the complexity of the test, and so on. Okay, that one regarding the fees lah. And then in addition, currently SIRIM incentive. There are few incentives for SIRIM itself. Now we are offering so-called a rebate lah. From 20% can goes up to 50%, depend on what kind of product lah. For the IBS itself, I can say now, at least the manufacturer applicant can get 20% lah, insyaAllah, as our support to the industry to rebound after the pandemic lah. Okay, for the other products like sanitary wares, ceramic tiles, then we can we can discuss and see what is the best CIDP project using IBS. Okay, can refer to CIDP for the details. Other than that, I also heard about the grant provided by the Metric for those industry who apply for the assistance grant, if not mistaken lah. Okay, that one regarding the incentive. Hopefully can help the industries. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have time for just one more question. And of course, for others, we'll try to answer through the YouTube channel or through the reply to email and WhatsApp. Okay, the final question will be in the first schedule of Act 520, the CIDB Act. It states that the standard for ceramic wash basin, the standard is MS 2578. Okay, the question is, what happens if we have to go to product certification or engineering inspection process? What is your advice on this matter?
Okay. All right. I think I will let my colleague Encik Muzaffar to answer this.
Okay. Regarding for ceramic wash basin, MS 2578